So for Safaricom, the top line has been weak. We saw a very small growth in the service revenues, but when you look at the specific service revenues as a separate business entity, like for voice and SMS, the trend is something that we were expecting. It's something that was bound to happen at some point. Voice on its own has reached maturity, so it was bound to either slow down or start declining. So the numbers were not very surprising. For SMS has taken a hit from competition from over-the-top services such as WhatsApp, Skype, such. No one is sending SMS anymore. So that the trend there was predictable. For M-Pesa is the giant that's driving Safaricom right now. Fixed data has a lot of potential for Safaricom. Currently for homes, the numbers they gave us were about 137,000 homes only in the entire country that are connected to fixed data. So there's a lot of potential for Safaricom. Of course, that means a lot of capex because they're going to have to invest a lot in expanding the fixed data network. But when you look at Safaricom numbers also, they've been very good at controlling their costs. Okay. When you look at their EBITDA margins, they are above 50%, which is very good. It means they are generating a lot of income with the revenues, but also their EBITDA, their costs are also being managed. So especially the EBITDA margin, it grew from about 50% to 51% compared to the previous the H1 of 2019. Yeah. So I think the growth story for M-Pesa, for Safaricom, is in M-Pesa, driven by Fuliza. Fuliza contributed about 1.3 billion in the half year. It still has a lot of potential, and going forward towards the end of the year, we're going to see Fuliza contribute a bigger margin to the revenues, and I think M-Pesa is where we should focus on for.
All right, and I should just clarify that when you talk about EBITDA, you mean earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Martin, your thoughts on the growth story for this company? This is, of course, a company which attracts a lot of interest from the investment side because when you look at the NSE structure by itself, it's about half of it. Yeah. So what are your thoughts around this growth story?
I think to me the next growth story is Ethiopia, and I think that's where most investors are very keen on. They're ready to, the Ethiopian government has issued two licenses, two licenses which Safaricom wants to do a greenfield model. Greenfield being opening up, setting up shop from scratch in Ethiopia, and that gives it access to 100 million people. That will be party after party, unfortunately, if I can use such kind of words. But basically, what Ethiopia, there'll be a consortium. There'll be a consortium of four telcos, four companies. Let me use, because Safaricom said that it's them, the parent Vodacom, and two more that they can't name for now. Bloomberg reported that the license will cost around $1 billion. So I don't think this year should see a special dividend like what happened last year. And which caused quite an excitement of the stock. Aside from that, I do think M-Pesa is where everything will be. It's true, right now we are almost now, it's like you pointed out, 5% service revenue growth, it's really low. Yeah. So now they want to launch new products on the M-Pesa line in January. They said they're launching something in January on the M-Pesa front, which we are waiting to see. They talked about, according to the last Communication Authority report, they had grown the subscriber base the highest, 4.4% quarter on quarter. However, as an analyst, I want to throw in a spanner in the works. The spanner here is that word on the ground is that after the introduction of Fuliza, all of a sudden you'll notice that apparently customers couldn't would say somebody, don't send me money on my line, I have Fuliza, and send me. So what percentage of that growth equals the same clients getting an additional line?
Yes.
So that, I think that's a question we need to ask management, which are they the same? Do we have the same ID numbers opening same lines? Or are we having different new clients, or just a different growth in subscriber numbers? But from where I sit, I think that could be quite a contributor.
I see.
Another growth story, like she pointed out, was Fuliza. We did a report after the first half of 2019 of KCB results, and we noticed that in just from January to September, Fuliza disbursed at least 81 billion. So that shows you how big volumes they're actually driving. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, I think the Business Daily ran a story that Michael Joseph is talking about reducing the pricing on Fuliza. Probably, if I add that to the fact that now we have more subscriber numbers, what does that mean? Probably they have noticed they're losing traction or velocity, that now they want to probably now lower down the cost, so that at least now we won't reach a scenario whereby we are growing on one end, but on the other end we're actually bleeding. So that's from where I see. That's what I think.
I see. I want to switch gears to the subject of mobile data, which has been quite a point here, because mobile data in the full year results released in May actually had the slowest expansion we've seen in quite a while, considering how many people are taking up this kind of provision of service. And we've seen the same number, same issue in the half year results. And I was asking Satish, I remember if you watched that we have a repricing strategy right now. First of all, data does not expire. And then the second thing is you're talking about lowering the prices. How do you see mobile data revenue, Sarah, being impacted for Safaricom going forward?
So in terms of mobile data, people spend on average 162 shillings on mobile data. And so there's still room for that to grow. Like in voice, it's above 300 shillings per month. And so, as I mentioned, only about 58% of Safaricom's clients actually use the mobile data platform. So there is room for them to increase the number of subscribers in mobile data. And then the investment in 4G data. So 4G has the potential of increasing the usage per customer. So as the number of customers increase, they'll spend more. So even if the data does not expire, actually with 4G, what would happen is that you'd buy probably a data bundle, and then it doesn't, probably buy one that doesn't expire. However, the amount you'll realize that as you use a 4G, you realize you need more things in terms of internet. I think that's what globally companies do. You give clients a product, and then they realize something that they thought they did not need, and they realize suddenly that they actually need it. So let's take an example like promotions. So when Safaricom had that thing of watching free YouTube during the marathon, so giving you free YouTube. And so a client who before wasn't watching YouTube and got the opportunity for that one day to free access to YouTube, the next time they'll probably increase the expenditure and use more of the YouTube channel. And so that increases that revenue. So even as prices decrease, the usage per customer could increase, and also the number of customers, given that it's only 58% of Safaricom's current client base, the number of customers could also increase.
Okay.
Yes.
Justina?
I think we're not going to see a further cut in mobile data prices from Safaricom, because they already did that. Now what they're driving towards mostly is maximizing the customers that they already have. So I think they're going to be heavy on marketing and promotions, more inbuilt marketing. So they've experienced a lot of competition in the recent past from other players in the market, and this time they've reduced the prices and given their customers bundles that do not expire. So I think that's the most we're going to see from Safaricom this financial year. We're not going to see any further cuts from them. So I think going forward, maybe the next financial year, we might see them cut their prices depending on how stiff competition is. The expiry of the data bundles will have an effect, but it's not going to be that significant, especially in the second half of the year. We see that to be a gradual thing for a gradual generator of revenue.
I see. And speaking about competition, I want to get to Martin and get his thoughts around the Airtel Telecom JV, the joint venture. And this certainly has been making headlines quite a bit, depending on which side you're sitting from. One side it was halted by EACC, but then given the green light ahead. And of course, Safaricom is not lost to this trend. I don't know from where you sit, your optic, how are investors looking at this development in a market which has largely been viewed to be with one dominant?
I think it's a positive, the merger. In my view, I never support the word called dominant, because look at it this way. Safaricom spends north of 36 billion in CapEx, capital expenditure, every financial year. So why should I, if I'm a business, why should I be, for lack of a better word, victimized due to my innovative and my genius in coming up with new products and new product line and the like. So I think it's a positive, because now we'll just have two players in the market. So your Airtel and Telcom, at least them joining now creates a bigger force in the market, so that in terms of, if it's pricing, if in terms of, it's good for the client, it's good for the customer, in terms of pricing, in terms of competition, I think it is a good move, and that even makes work for the Communication Authority work even better, if I can say so. Yeah. So I think Safaricom is positive on that, and I think in my view that it is a positive for the consumer and for the market, yes.
Okay, Sarah, on the Airtel Telecom joint venture and how this impacts the investors' look on Safaricom.
So I think it would be positive for Safaricom, given that there's been a lot of news about dominance and concern about Safaricom's dominance. And so when the two merge, it will be a stronger competition. So that will be positive for Safaricom, because the focus will no longer be on the Safaricom's dominance. And in terms of the split, I think the biggest risk would be the split of M-Pesa, as you had mentioned before, because it would lead to, because as you've mentioned, Safaricom is more of M-Pesa. So M-Pesa is a key driver. The reason most people still have a Safaricom line is because of the M-Pesa. And so if you're with the Communications Authority tried to introduce interoperability, whereby you're able to send money directly from M-Pesa to Airtel Money and the likes, but that has not picked up yet. And I think people, there's a brand Safaricom has built, and that's M-Pesa, and people love the convenience and the innovation around the whole M-Pesa space. And so if people could be able to spend money, you'd have your Airtel line and still send money easily to someone else. I think that would now present a risk. However, the joint venture would be positive for Safaricom.
I see. And speaking about and there's actually a proposed legislation in the National Assembly around this potential split, and we've seen this happen in Ghana. Justine, I'm just curious to know how largely you view this as a risk factor for Safaricom.
I think from an investor's point of view, that is not exactly a risk, because M-Pesa would still be 100% owned by Safaricom as a subsidiary. So the revenues for M-Pesa would still contribute to the greater Safaricom PLC. So the share price would still remain the same. There's no hits to the to Safaricom share price, because all they're doing will be operating as separate entities. Well, for most people hold a Safaricom line because of M-Pesa, but you still need that. You cannot have an M-Pesa line, so you still need Safaricom. Basically, what they would be doing is just separating the operations, but from an investor's point of view, it's still the same company. They're just operating as a subsidiary and a parent company, but when you look at the numbers, it would not have a big any effect actually.
Martin, you seem to be nodding.
To add to that, that is exactly the point. We just need, from an investor's point of view, it's the holding company. If the holding company is what is listed, and the holding company owns the telco and owns M-Pesa, that's it. You're home and dry. It's the same company. But at least I'm happy that your communication authority, your CBK, your Ministry of ICT came out strongly to try to tell parliamentarians we should not stifle innovation. So by separating those two elements will be stifling innovation. So I think it's not the right move, but from an investor's point of view, if the holding company is the correct, it's the mother company of the two subsidiaries. It's the same company releasing results and giving you a dividend at the end of the day and capital appreciation on the bows. Yes. Okay,
and I'm told we have just about 4 minutes to go, and I want us to get to our closing remarks around the subject we've been having. And as you give those closing remarks, I want you to note this. The market has been trading now for about an hour, going to 2 right now, and KCB is up 5.97%, Equity Bank is up 4.9%, and Barclays is up 4.2%. Those are the main banks gaining, and of course this is in light of the legislation developments yesterday. Your closing thoughts around the whole banking discussion post the rate cap issue. Sarah, let me start with you.
So my view is that it's positive for banks, because it leads to higher profitability and for the economy in general. So the impact on the economy will not be immediate, because we don't expect banks to start to increase their lending to private sector immediately, so probably next year or the year after that. And so that would mean better company earnings. So for the market as a whole, that is positive. And so we view positive in terms of, yeah.
All right. Martin?
For the bank stocks, I think it's a positive. It's a positive also for the entire market. I think we'll still see a ripple effect in several sectors. In my view, I think cement sector, and the only cement company listed there is Bamburi. And reason being, ever since the rate cap, you notice that lending to the building and construction has been on a slowdown trajectory, same as real estate. So I'm seeing Bamburi being a good buy, in that your keen investor should actually also look into Bamburi and Centum for that matter, because Centum is exposed to KREP, not KREP, CDN for that matter, still small in book value. What is the other one? They're big on real estate, okay? So combining those two will give, there are pockets of opportunity there. So there is quite a big positive on the bourse and on the sector in general. However, I think investors need to also think of different asset classes and different ways to diversify the portfolio. The market already has now launched the NSE derivative exchange, which has been pretty low in terms of uptake. Yeah. We're talking that from July, when it was launched, to now, the turnover is only 14 million. I think one of the biggest reasons is that liquidity has been a challenge. However, Standard Investment Bank has been given a license to be a market maker, which I think will be a positive for the market. Over and above that, different asset classes like what we have as Mansa X in Standard Investment Bank gives investors better opportunities to invest in different asset classes with better returns. Thank you.
All right. Justina, closing remarks?
I think it's positive for banks, consider in the long term. But in the short term, I would be concerned about the banks' holdings of government securities. Most of the banks went heavy on government securities, and when you look at banks like Barclays and Stanchart, they hold, they have a trading book. So that would take a hit, because the yields on government securities are going to go up. So they're going to, the prices are going to, they're going to record some losses in that. So even all the banks that have government securities that are available for sale, that is also going to take a hit when the yields go up. So it's a positive in the long run, but towards the full year results, I'd I'd be curious to see